So you heard a little bit about my background when I came up. I am a computer scientist by degree, although I quickly somehow ended up in a account management role after being a tech for a little bit at the MSP. I always joked somehow they figured out I was a network engineer with social skills, and at that point they put me on the management track. Didn't let me just continue talking with computers. I spent a decade on this house. Becca is still around. I don't want anyone to think that for some reason this MSP's disappeared. Becca actually turned 50 years old this year. We started IT back in 1975. I joined as a tech, spent 5 years running the company. We helped form a larger conglomerate and then got a private equity partner involved, and I chose to step away at that time. Great friends with John Murchison and agreed to help come run all of IT at Blackpoint Cyber. So that's kind of where I end up. When I stepped away from Becca, we were pushing on a bad year an average net profit of 15 to 18%. On a good year, we were on target to be 22% when I left for that year. And I attribute a lot of that to what we were starting to do with automation to drive everything that the company was pushing. So I know I've got 30 minutes. What I'm going to try to cover today is why automation, its strategic impact, my automation framework. I'm sure everyone here has heard a ton about, hey, this is how we did it. This is how I do it. This is the best way to do it. I'm going to tell you what we did, let you kind of come to the determination if it would fit for you, and then push into the ROI calculations I used in the back end to kind of figure out was the automation worth it or not. Then get into expanding your own services offering with automation, what I mean by that, and then kind of how we started our journey to get you going if you were in the infancy of automation. I don't know if Aaron has shared the slide again this year. Last year there was a great slide talking about from the starting point all the way up to basically selling your automation services to other MSPs as one of the highest tiers. So helping walk you through that. So quick quote that I'm sure probably seen a little bit. Automation applied to an efficient operation will magnify the efficiency. Automation applied to an inefficient operation will magnify the inefficiency. It's by Bill Gates. The purpose of this is there are such things as bad automations. Just because it can have an automation doesn't mean it should. If you take one and go, we're going to do it this way, and it goes bad, you will do more damage that takes more manual effort to get out of. So making sure you're aware of, as you step into the automation, before you even build it, is it going to work out? What should I expect? Make sure it is the correct automation to be efficiently applied. So why automation matters. Today, as we talk about your MSP, changing expectations due to AI. So if you haven't had this thought yet, every end user that's going to reach out, everyone who's going to want to talk to you is going to have already gone to ChatGPT. 90% of the time, they have already asked AI. And that's instantaneous at their fingertips. So they're going to start to want service desks to handle things that AI couldn't solve for them. So now it's getting your service desk to be just as efficient as AI. You can do that with automation. Your market pressures, so staff constraints. Growing demand for technology, fewer people knowing how to actually do all of the work that goes into the back end of the technology. AI agents and assistants in the news. People reaching out going, I want Copilot. How do I have ChatGPT here? How do I have the AI agent in HubSpot, to help run my business? They're typically going to be reaching out, talking to their MSP partner, their technology partner, to help them implement it. Security pressures. If you don't know this, all the attackers are using AI automation these days. So having to combat it as well using AI. And then the other part is, my big component is it is a great conversation starter for those clients that you haven't had a chance to get back in front of recently, that have been really good clients. But being able to say, hey, we have this new item that we want to talk about. Let's sit down, explain how it can help your business and ours, and focus on that win together. So strategic impact. If you kind of focus in on automation, you're going to be able to increase your revenue, decrease operational cost. How do you increase revenue? Well, automation is a service. And I don't mean you're going to sell your automation to other people or use automation as a way to do things faster in your MSP. I mean, automate your clients' problems. Automate their systems together. Then for that decreased operational cost, being able to do things faster, you've probably heard this a ton of times. I'm not going to spend a ton of time touching on it because I've seen a ton of other sessions talking about, hey, that level 1 tech, that level 2 tech, getting them out of their touches, billing reconciliation, all of that to decrease your operational cost. The other part is client satisfaction, being able to go faster. Everyone likes to see those lovely SLAs that, hey, we got a ticket, we responded to a ticket within 10 minutes, solved it within 30. Our higher client retention, this is going to be, as we talk about automation as a service a little bit later, touching on it now, of when you are in their operational process, when you are the automation and integration engine behind their core business operations, it's hard to get, when they think about, oh, there's this one problem, they think about their entire business impact. If I looked at you today and said, I want you to tomorrow to change your PSA out, there's a ton on the market. 90% of the time, the first thought is, well, there's too much business impact to try to impact the PSA. It's billing, it's ticketing. It might integrate to everything else. It gets all of its data from other systems, but it is one of the core pillars of the MSP design. It's not easily migratable. The first thought is, how much pain will this cost me to get it out? Not, oh man, they screwed up one ticket, I'm going to replace them in a heartbeat. Last is team member development and retention. If you implement automation correctly and a structure to do this, you can start to empower your reactive engineers to maybe focus in on development and then eventually try to re-engage them to go, hey, who are my creative thinkers? Who can help me take that next step forward into what's coming? So pushing into my automation framework. So how did we take a look at this? So the first part I mentioned was planning. You should ask yourself these questions every time you start an automation. What does it solve? Who benefits? Is it just the MSP, your customers benefit, your employees benefit? We used to use a little triangle conversation of, at each point of the triangle was the company, your clients, and your employees. Every decision has to try to benefit right in the middle. Because every time you lean one way, typically you're detracting from the others if you're only accounting for how the company is doing, typically your clients and your employees suffer. If you only account for the employees, your clients and the company suffers. So building this in as you're looking at it. Also, what are you expecting from a time savings? We talk about automation as a great way that we don't have to have the engineer's time used. What is expected so you can measure it at the end? What's our implementation commitment? Is this we get 3 days to build it, we got a month? And then what's the maintenance expectations? And if you are writing automation thinking you're going to set it once and forget it, I promise you, you have missed the point, because it's going to every once in a while take maintenance to it. And if you have automations that don't seem to need maintenance, after about 6 months, chances are they're either not doing anything anymore or something is not right in them because it's just not screaming at you. Next, moving in, once you've done all your planning, is to go into the risk checks. So what access does the automation require? If you have anyone in a special industry from finance, medical, making sure that you aren't exposing data that shouldn't be exposed. If the automation requires full-blown administrative credentials at API level to create an account, is it secure? Is the risk introduced to opening up that API right? Make sure your credentials are correct. Who and how is the automation triggered? Is it triggered by a webhook that's just open to the public internet? Right now, if anyone had a webhook that is accepting a form just from the internet to offboard or onboard someone, an attacker can grab that and onboard their own person as a fake employee to get in. Make sure you are protecting how it's getting triggered. Or is there a recursive chance that it's going to start to recursively delete everything in the system? We do have a story about that automation. We accidentally kind of created a recursive check on the LUNs of our SAN. And then it was going to clean up orphaned items when we did backup and recovery of our own database. We let it get out of hand, and we kind of deleted ConnectWise. It was a fun 8 hours of recovery in the middle of a work day. We had engineers taking notes on pen and paper. Felt like real old school. So you definitely want to make sure how it's getting called in there is a thing. And then, is there any way to be used maliciously? And document it. Feel like, put on your tinfoil hat. It's good to know what it could do and how it could break or how it could be used against you, so if something happens, you know where to go look. Next is where we finally get to implementation. Pushing into building and managing this. If you're not using tickets to track your automations, you should. Every inch of time that goes into this is billable, for how we worded it, against the MSP itself, for when you're doing an internal automation. If you're good enough and are able to sell it as a service, you get to bill the client for it. But everything should be on that ticket. And that ticket should have automation attached as a configuration or an asset, because it is an asset to the company, to your MSP, to your customers, just like a laptop, just like a user account. We've always talked about configurations being these physical devices that we can physically touch, but it's expanded so much more than that. And when you start to track them as configurations, you're looking at how many times do I have to open tickets for this automation. It helps you measure its return. How much touch is it going to take? How much time is this automation sinking in maintenance? When we talked about being able to measure that time savings, do it in your PSA, because your engineers are also, it might be saving time, but if your engineer is spending more time working on the automation than it's saving you, it's a bad automation. And then make sure the automation is tracking its time when it runs. So in your PSA, make it track time like an engineer would. That way, if you run a time report for your client, how much time would this have taken as a human? You can report that, because chances are your client doesn't have an automation team or a dev team to do this for them. So if they were going to do it, they're going to go think about the old way to do it. Go hire a bunch of tier 1s, tier 2s, tier 3s. That's their cost impact. If they didn't have the MSP, you might be doing it faster, but should you have to charge less because you do it faster? No. You should be able to charge what it would cost them to do it themselves. So think about how they would do it. Next is the maintenance. I kind of touched on this of every ticket has that asset attached to it. So every time you work on it, it's going to be done. Then use automation itself to open a ticket to check on this every quarter or so. How many times has it run? Is it properly documenting its time savings? Does it have any failures that it didn't tell us about? Go look. Can't say how many times I've peeked at automations. I'm like, oh, this has started, for the term we would use, failing successfully. It was somehow finding a way out to skip half of its automation runs, but because it was a successful skip, it did not throw any alert. It was not a failed automation run. So if we hadn't gone and looked, we wouldn't have been able to see that the data was missing. So as we talk about documentation, there was a quote we used. You don't get what you expect, you get what you inspect. And this is saying, I could expect something to do all of this, but if I'm not looking, it doesn't really matter. I'm not going to get what I'm after. And then you can't inspect what you don't measure. If you aren't documenting everything, the runs, what it's supposed to do, how it functions, maintenance, who's in charge, who's the owner, you can't inspect it because you don't remember what it was supposed to do. Treat everything as a tracked asset: users, computers, switches, automation, processes. It all plays into the game. As you work on a process, you update an automation, a user gets touched. it's all items you're going to want to report on later to figure out, was it correct? How much engagement is this user taking? How much is this client taking? What about the automation? When you track it, you can report on it. And that gets important too as we talk about how do you calculate a return on investment on an automation. What were we looking at? So this next part's going to get a little bit wordy because I've got some definitions up here for as I share and talk about it, how I defined it. So labor rate, that's the hourly cost of your employee plus your overhead. So how much you pay them per hour plus then their percentage of the rent, their assets, everything that goes into that general administrative bucket down in the bottom for all our finance people in the room. Then their billable rate, so this is how much if you were to bill them out just on an hour going the old-fashioned not fixed contract, how much do you get a charge for them? Time saved is your automation from your automation. Build times the development time of your automation, and maintenance time is the time spent updating, maintaining. You should always expect annual maintenance to be not above 20% or 25% of development time. If for some reason you're going, it's going to take me an hour to develop this, and then I'm going to have to spend an hour to 2 hours every quarter working on maintenance, you really just have a never-ending dev project, which means you need an engineer to babysit it all the time. It's not a self-running automation at that point. Maybe you should just have the engineer doing the work. So we're going to get into two things, cost of implementation and cost of maintenance. This is your labor rate times your build time, and then your labor rate times your maintenance time. This is perfectly fine to do on any period you want to look at. Let's say you want to look at a month, look at a year, just take that time and multiply it out by the period you're looking at. So our ROI calculation turns into this very strange equation I've written down here. What it says in a general sense is our ROI is how much money we saved plus how much money did I then get to build the engineer out that now is no longer doing physical work on something else. So many times people look at an automation and go, the ROI is just how much time I saved. No, if you're running it correctly, you have given the engineer another task to do. So you have generated, not only have you saved revenue or saved your costs by what they're not doing, you then get to build them out doing something else. So you can double dip. And then what you'll see down over there is that 0.6. We were very candid of, as much as I want to say an engineer is going to be 100% efficient with every minute I give back to them, it's just not reality. They chit-chat, they get distracted, so account for 0.6 of their time. We're going to say 40% of all the time I give back, I'm going to lose somewhere else that is just going to be lost. Plus then that RI and RM, this is if you are able to sell your automation for your customer. So imagine taking everything you do internally for your automation, sitting down, talking to your customer and going, well, I'm going to automate how this SQL server talks to this cloud system for you. The MSP is not getting any automation benefit. You're solving one of their problems. That is a project, and you should bill for it. And then if it has recurring maintenance, you should attach it as a new contract to say, hey, we're going to maintain this code base for you, and we're going to charge you monthly for it. So it absolutely goes in to your profit at the top, divided by how much it costs to build and maintain. So the onboarding automation is one of the ones everyone likes to talk about at starting. I will share onboarding automation is one of the most complex ones you can do when you actually get into it because there's so much to account for. But this example basically takes into account for a level 1 engineer, labor rate of $50, so I'm going to build them out at 50% margin, which is 100. And then same with the dev engineer that for some reason their labor rate's 100 and billable is 200. Typically this is low for the industry. This just makes easy math for the presentation. So our automation and build time took 20 hours, time saved per month was 10, maintenance was 30 minutes per month. So when we kind of run this in to all of our costs down there at the bottom, if it's a little hard to read, you get into where it's $6,000 saved in time if I was to have a level 1 engineer do this. Plus then the $3,600 that I now get to rebill that engineer back out at their billable rate. All over my dev time and maintenance was $2,600. So now I'm looking and saying this automation should bring me 369% ROI. Why is it important to understand this ROI calculation? Not just for you. When we get into a little bit about expanding your service, is taking this in and going, I need to show my customer the value that I'm going to bring back. So when you're talking with your client's COO, CEO, president, a lot of times when we talk tech, it just goes, woof. Now, when you go, hey, I'm going to automate a piece of your process. I'm going to push this in, and I'm going to show you how much time I save you. I save your people. Then you can use that same calculation I shared to them with their cost, their labor rates, how they handle their service, to basically go, I'm going to show you how much money I'm going to save you with automation. That typically gets the project approved. Now you have funding. You have you can go in and push them further. And like I was saying, as you get into this, you are now becoming a core part of their operation. One of the greatest things that we achieved was with one of our very large clients. They had roughly 2,900 people. At one point they said, hey, we think we want to take onboard and offboarding back in-house. We went, okay. Also, what they realized was, well, can you share the documentation about how we onboard someone? Okay, here you go. Then they came back and they're like, how are you guys doing it so quickly? Oh, it's on our automation system. Like, well, can we use that? Sure, I'm going to charge you for using it. You know, when you get so good at being a part of their operational practices, you are a core part of their business that is so hard to take out that typically everything you do from an MSP standpoint becomes secondary. It was the stickiest way we could ever get in and hold on to a customer. The next is, it gives a chance, how you get into this is you start to have your account managers, whoever's talking to your clients, about pain points. We always sat there and went, hey, what are you having issues with your tech? Are your workstations working? We would always say, tell me about your technical story. Well, I can always tell you what I enjoyed when I was on the MSP side, talking to vendors, is I wanted a vendor to sit here and listen to all of my problems. I wanted them to sit there and let me dump every technical, operational, finance, people operations problem I had and see which ones they could solve. Let your account managers do the same thing for your clients. Get them to tell you where their problem is. One of the ones we came into was, we had an engineering company that basically said, well, we have this on-prem SQL system that our project managers and our field team uses, and we have this account management system called Salesforce that they use. Each team doesn't like to use the other system because it's not what they're in every day, and they don't talk to each other. But we used Roost and went, this is pretty easy. We can make a SQL call using PowerShell. Then we can work with Salesforce team to get access to their API. We basically wrote the little trigger. When someone updates something here, send it to the SQL server. When someone updates on the SQL server, send it there. They paid us $30,000 to write that. You know, and it was because they went, this has been a problem that's plagued us for 3 years. No one's been able to solve it because there's not an easy integrate button. There wasn't a button in Salesforce that said, integrate to this on-prem bid-to-win SQL server. Easy to do. Once you start to get a dev team, that's their language. They can write that in their sleep. We were now not only their MSP, we were their operational savior, helping bring them solutions they've never seen before. You know, then, if you want to get really good, you go, hey, we own this operational code. To make sure it never breaks for you, we need to check on it once a month. And it's going to take about 2 hours of work just to make sure we check on it. I'm going to charge you $250, $300 per hour. So let's just increase your contract $600 a month for us to keep track of this, make sure it's running, you're doing what you need to. Oh, now I've increased my MRR for an account that I haven't talked to for having a new service added in many, many years, pushing that in. So I've increased my revenue. I've solved one of their biggest problems. I'm their hero. And the greatest part was on our automation platform. If they let us go, we just turned off the automation platform. That was part of their service. They didn't have their own Roost instance. They didn't have their own automation engine. It was our service. And there's been entire companies that I've started to find that do this. If you haven't ever heard of a company called Application Link, they're out of the Netherlands. They've started to do this between the MSP tools for MSPs to buy, connect Autotask to Business Central Dynamics, do all this stuff that you helped give them the information, but they owned all of the back-end code. So if you said, I no longer want to pay Application Link, they went, okay, you don't have an integration anymore. So it becomes much harder to remove the MSP. And I'm definitely pushing my time. Got about 2 minutes, so I'm going to speed up a little bit to get through how to start. So the first part was operations. When we talk about how to get from point A to this point of being able to sell this as a service, how to push yourself into that competitive advantage of selling it, operations first. Build how to track everything. Before you write the first one, what boards, what ticket statuses, recommend you start to build something new. Don't try to fit it into your service offering. It is a new item. If anyone's familiar with how DevOps function, they function completely different than a service desk. And that is kind of where automation at this level starts to become. It's DevOps. Next, start small. You've heard this a ton of times. It's one of Aaron's favorite sayings at Roost. You can't automate something that isn't documented. And I will call out, start with something like building a Microsoft 365 user or building a user in AD, a piece of the onboard. When you go and start adding, well, I need to procure a license during an onboard, I need to send an email, need to figure out how to build the endpoint, assign them to all the groups, the automation gets very messy very quickly. So if it becomes your first one, it's going to feel frustrating and your engineers will feel frustrated. You want to start small and move up from there. Next, and this is the part that most people don't think about, automate your RPA. What do we mean by that? It is taking in an automation to say, well, when an automation fails, I want that to be a trigger for another automation to then dump all this diagnostic data into my ticket for an engineer to look at, and then go back and count how many times in the last 30 days that automation has also failed. Why have arguably the automation engineer, the dev team is one of the most expensive in the business, go sifting through data? Have your automation engine go get it for them. Empower them that way. And then once you're there, now you can imagine, explore, and create. Go figure out and push to the limits of what could never be fixed before. What manual process could we never solve for? Or that we looked at and went, well, if we did this manually, it's just too much time, so we're not going to do it. We used to, for 365 billing, every month when we do it, me and my director of operations would go sit in a room with a stack of paper about yay big from TD Synnex when they did NCE and try to get through everything that had changed month over month. And we had looked at, oh, well, maybe we can put this into an Excel spreadsheet to track it. We just kind of deemed, yeah, the amount of time it would take us to read it and then type it a second time was too much. Now we're starting to do things that never had a process documented. So I'm going to put this up so everyone can see it. Since I am a minute over, your people. Identify your tools engineer. It's typically the person that's configuring your RMM and your PowerShell. If you don't have one yet, do there. Then build them into sprints. So we said, hey, we're going to give you 8 hours a day. Or in a month, we're going to give you 1 day a month that your entire job's to do automation. No projects, no reactive tickets. We promise not to drag you into anything. Then we moved it up to a week. And then eventually we had enough time to say, okay, we're going to give this to you full time. Next was the innovation meetings. We started with a week and then did them once a month. What's going on? What's everyone doing? We're pulling in key service leaders, head of our client success team, our SVP of service, our director of managed services, our director of operations, and the automation team to sit down and go, what's working, what's not working, what do people want to see internal, what are our clients saying, so everyone's on the same page. If you're familiar with EOS, it was close to a level 10 type style meeting. The next is set your MRR target. So as you're getting started, how much money must you be bringing in as part of automation to then dedicate and build your dev and automation team? Because this will push you into the point of knowing when is this time to go sell it full-time as a service and add it in, and now you have that piece that no one else has yet. This stickiness part of the operation to where if another MSP is going to come try to replace you at this client, that MSP also must be ready to take on all the operational items you have automated for that customer. To be faster than you in what you do, and everyone's talking about of your tier 1, tier 2 work, onboards, triaging tickets, but now it's also your customers' processes. And typically that is what will keep you in the account as well as give you that chance to push yourself forward to stand out. Because what we found was when we went and talked to new clients, their current MSP wasn't talking to them about their non-technical challenges yet. We could get in the door to go, well, tell us about how your finance system's talking to your Excel system, or I'm drawing a blank on, for our EMRs talking to the billing system, or all these different pieces getting in. It gave us a conversation topic that they hadn't heard from the MSP before. So we were able to get in. And again, I'm over, so I will go ahead and give it back. Thank you for listening. If you guys have any questions, I'm happy to talk about my experience and anything Blackpoint. I'll be at the Blackpoint booth up in the expo hall all week, so come stop by and say hey. Thanks.